The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the First and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
Hey, welcome onto the program. It's First and 12 right here. Don't shake your head like that at me, Gustavo. We're having a good time in here, all right? First and 12, right here on KSL News Radio. All we talk about on this program is the Big 12. That's all we get you going on with all things Big 12 football. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, you can, of course, have on these Football Tuesdays on KSL News Radio. You get the fill here of Cougar Tracks preceding this program, you just heard. And then 2 hours of First and 12, where we go all Big 12. And then you're going to hear Coach Kalani Sitake. And on a rivalry week, it's always good. I'm always interested to see how vanilla that these coaches can keep it and just try to keep their feelings really as guarded as possible on this week, because both coaches, both Kyle Whittingham and Kalani Sitake do it like, oh, you know, we respect our opponents. You know, it's just like, and Kyle Whittingham was like, I'm just focusing on us this week. Was that his quote?
Yeah.
I'm just focusing on us. How about
what are your thoughts on Bear Bachmer? I'm just focusing on our guys.
I think you'd have to ask Bear about Bear. It's like, okay, ask Bear's mom about Bear. Don't ask me about it. So, yes, that's the type of rivalry week insights that we get. However, always good to hear from Coach Kalani Sitake. That's coming up right after this program. In the meantime, our very favorite thing that we do, I would say, this and the Sound Roundup. These are some of our favorite segments. But every week we get you going with the weekly update of the Big 12 Power Rankings. Let's do it.
The Big 12 Power Rankings. A weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
No surprise, as we've been talking throughout the show already. Number one, Texas Tech. It's pretty cut and dry. There's nothing really to add. Now, Baron Morton, a little bit banged up. Baron Morton with Texas Tech.
And Will Hammond didn't look like the giant slayer that he was against Utah necessarily. Their six-figure backup quarterback down there at Tech, but still, though, when you get 200 and something yards out of your sophomore running back, you don't need anything else out of your backup quarterback. I'm interested to see what the Baron Morton situation really is. Like, is that your best quarterback?
Yeah,
is that their best quarterback?
That's where I'm wondering. I think Will Hammond might be their best one.
They'll get to the Big 12 championship game, and at that point, you'll kind of know who the real guy is, right? And then there's no way you can fake it in the college football playoff.
Could we see a situation maybe years ago in the college football playoff where Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua? Maybe we see some big game for Texas Tech, and Joey says, hey, Morton's struggling. They have so much confidence in Will Hammond that they go –
Yeah, teams have some film on him, obviously, and they know what he did against that Utah defense. Now, part of it was a little bit of that element of surprise, but also – the balls that he threw were crazy. So Texas Tech being number one, it's a no-brainer.
Yes.
They're not just undefeated. They're beating the heck out of teams. And people fear Tech. I mean, that's the reality, is that people fear Texas Tech right now, and you should. Maybe the teams say that they don't, but I will tell you, they absolutely will.
And they still have one of the best wins in the league going at Utah last month. That's going to hold up, and it's showing that way. And number two in the rankings is BYU, also undefeated like Texas Tech, 6-0. Kind of going under the radar nationally, but they are number 15 in the AP Top 25 poll. So they're definitely climbing, knocking on the door of the top 10 a little bit. So BYU, it's been kind of gradual build, but everything's in front of BYU. The same start as they had last year, 6-0, back-to-back seasons for the Cougars.
And if they eke out a win against Utah, which I assume that's the only way they can win games, it seems like they eke out games and against extremely good opponents. That's not a diss. What I'm saying is they almost like these close games because they know that they have kind of an advantage of just getting there and getting the wins. I'm interested to see how these rankings shake out. But we have Utah at number 3. I love it. Utah and BYU being right next to each other toward the top of the rankings there. What you're really saying is this is that race to see who that number 2 at the end of the year is, and that's where BYU and Utah both are. Utah, of course, already played Texas Tech. I have no doubt that Texas Tech goes into Provo a few weeks ago. You may have seen the same result because you hadn't seen the development that Bear Bachmeyer has already gone through, and so there might be a different result there. But 3 Utah. How about 4 Cincinnati? And I love that. That's a one-loss Cincinnati team. By the way, it's not just you lose that close game against Nebraska. It's actually that one play. It was the interception that was thrown by Sorsby that was just kind of a garbage throw for no reason to the end. Like, you don't need to be a hero in that moment. And that lost that game against Nebraska, who we're looking at now and is a ranked team. But I think Cincinnati's a better team than that Nebraska team.
And that reflects in the polls. I thought that was pretty cool to see Cincinnati one spot ahead of Nebraska. Cincy at 24, Nebraska at 25. Both of those teams pretty good this season. Number 5, another good team in the Big 12 power rankings for us this week. Houston Cougars 5-1. Lone losses to Texas Tech. They got a quarterback in Connor Wegman. I think Houston is going to be a tough out, and I feel very confident they're going bowling at a minimum. I mean, gosh, they're one win away from that. Houston, I think what's interesting about Houston is just operational-wise, they just seem like they're organized, they're structured, whereas with Holgerson, with previous regimes that they've had there's been some boom or bust guys, whereas Fritz, you feel like he's going to build a program long-term that is very steady, and that hasn't been the case for Houston in a very long time. He gives them so much optimism down in H-Town. Cougs are playing at a high level. And of note there, Alex, in the top 5, 3 teams that joined the league 2 years ago, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston, making a name for themselves because 2 years ago when we launched this show, all of those teams were at the cellar, the bottom of this league. It's been a slow build, but these teams that joined the conference a couple years ago are building up and being some of the top teams this season.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's Arizona State who joined it last year and was the tops, and they're still kind of up toward that same, and they're still up there. They're still going to be there. And Utah's right there as well. So, yeah, I think the league didn't just get better. They got a lot better just because of how the parity has been. And I hate that word in sports, but at the same time, it's been really good to get all those programs into the Big 12. Where do we end off? Arizona State is just underneath Houston. They take that bad loss against Utah. Part of the reason they didn't tumble more after a huge loss like that on the road, and it's their second of the year, it's just everybody wonders, but with Sam Leavitt out, and if he comes back, is this team, how different is this team without Sam Leavitt? Now, your whole team can kind of take a big giant, sigh, but they still gave up 42 points to that Utah team. Sam Leavitt doesn't play defense. Yeah, but he doesn't play defense. And I get that part of your defense is your offense being on the field and scoring, but the reality is that Utah still hung 42 on those guys, and I think that was a whole team that was just absolutely obliterated by the fact that their quarterback was out. That's how big of a difference Sam Leavitt makes.
Number 7 is Baylor. 8 is TCU. And then here's where maybe it could be a little bit controversial. 9, Iowa State. They're sliding big. Is that too big of a fall?
No, you lose 2 in a row. On our polls especially, we're pretty loose with like, hey, we're not trying to make guesses long term, which is I think a lot of these national polls do. We're just going, hey, these last 2 weeks you've stunk.
And they had that only 8-point win over Arkansas State. Like, we kind of excuse that in the moment, but you kind of look at where things have been the last month. It hasn't been good for Iowa State outside of that Arizona game.
And I've been impressed by Arizona, and that's the only reason that they're below Iowa State at number 10 in our poll is because they lost that overtime game to BYU, but they got beat by Iowa State.
Hammered.
As part of they got blown out by Iowa State. And so that's the one thing we're looking at and going, this conference just gives us, speaking of blowouts, how about number 11? Probably the highest they've been since week 1 or 2.
It's been a minute.
Is Kansas State, who moved right on up in these power poll in our power rankings to number 11 after a dominant win over TCU, and we never saw it coming. I don't think any of us picked that game this week.
No, not at all. And for TCU to give up 2 turnovers that results in touchdowns, like, you can't do that in this league. And it highlights how thin the margins are. But Kansas State having their defense show up, that was huge for them. If that can carry week after week, they could absolutely be a spoiler in this Big 12 championship race and be like what Kansas was last year, but maybe to a higher scale because they still actually have a decent record that could put them squarely in the mix for everything in front of them. Number 12 is the Colorado Buffaloes. Big win for the Buffs, who were so close the previous 2 weeks at TCU and at home against BYU. It was a breakthrough victory, I think, for Coach Prime to get a win over a nationally ranked team because they were struggling so much in the Coach Prime era against ranked teams. They finally broke through, and that was a huge win for the Buffs.
I wonder if they've actually figured some things out, or if they kind of rallied around Coach and they kind of got some juice that week from all that. We'll see how that kind of shakes out. We have totally forgotten almost about Jalen Daniels. I almost forgot his dang name. Like, how many times do we have to talk about that guy the last few years at the quarterback at Kansas? Lance Leipold is in a weird spot. he keeps getting really close and then kind of blowing it. Now, listen, losing to Texas Tech in Lubbock is, it's almost par for the course this year with how good Tech is. But Kansas is not looking good, man, and they're 13th in our power poll.
Do you wonder if Wisconsin fires Luke Fickell? Does Lance Leipold look at that job potentially if that becomes
Go back
open?
up to his old Whitewater.
Yeah, he's from Wisconsin,
yeah.
Whitewater. That's maybe a spot that you kind of watch because, again, it's not like they're good. Kansas is going to be competitive. I think they're good enough to maybe go to a bowl, but they thought a couple years ago that they could be Big 12 title contender good, and they're nowhere near that.
Gosh, and you know what? And then Jeff Grimes comes back into Kansas and becomes a head coach for no reason.
And he's at Wisconsin. It's just a circle. This football community, man.
The place that fired him after one season.
Number 14,
yes.
UCF, the Knights, 0-3 in Big 12 play. I think they were a byproduct of a weak non-conference schedule, and they're coming down to earth. But I still think that they're a little bit further ahead than I thought they would be in year one under Scott Frost. 15, West Virginia. Rich Rod era is off to a very slow start. They just had a bye. We'll see if they've got any sort of excitement coming out of this. And then 16, Oklahoma State. They're going to probably stay there the whole season.
Yeah, and that might be those bottom three. They might stay exactly where they're at the rest of the year, too. All right, let's take another break here. We'll come back. It is another segment in the books, and we're going to get you ready for rivalry week in the Big 12. Of course, the big one here locally is that BYU-Utah rivalry game. We've also got a lot of games to look ahead to this week. Other games that have that rivalry significance as well. Stay with us. It is First and 12 on KSL News Radio.